The Kansas State football season is over, and that also means that Chris Kleiman has officially coached his last game.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Now part of the number one sports podcast network, the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Welcome back to my Everydayers. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your live NFL bets all season long. All Big 12 teams were announced. We're going to dive into that. A couple names on the Kansas State roster spread all around there, especially on the honorable mention side. Portal chatter begins. If you're watching on YouTube, the good old fancy graphic hits on the bottom. Then was waiting for it. Can't wait. Portal chatter is back. And today we're going to be talking about, unfortunately, some departures. That's just how it is in December when the portal doesn't really truly open until January. But we're going to start today with the news that came out after the press conference, the Chris Kleiman retirement, some speculation that I had. I put it out on a TikTok and YouTube Shorts this past yesterday evening, and it sounds like it's came into fruition. Gene Taylor mentioned a couple times that he was going to speak to the players, and the questions that some of the media was asking him after Chris Kleiman made his statement about retirement was about what was going to happen with the bowl game. And I think initially the media was asking if Chris Kleiman was going to coach the bowl game. And I think that was the thought process there. Gene Taylor kind of turned it around and said he needs to get the players' perspective on if they still want to even participate in the bowl game. And at first, I had to kind of step back and think about it for a minute. I rewound it. I listened to it again. I thought he actually misspoke, more thinking of the fact of if they want to be able to do that without Chris Kleiman at the helm for the bowl game. But no, there was a vote, according to our sources. There was a vote, and that vote is the fact that they are not going to participate or opt in to a bowl game this season. So it sounds like Kansas State's football season is officially over, and that means Chris Kleiman has officially coached his last game after retiring. We thought there might be one more chance to say, see you later, but he leaves with a win. He leaves getting his team to 6-6. He leaves to getting his team to a bowl season every single year with the exception of the COVID year. And he gets to leave with his head hanging high. As he mentioned in his statement, he is at peace. So initially, we've seen some sources that was on social media. We saw it at Football Scoop. John Bryce reported this over on Twitter X, that Kansas State intends not to accept the bowl invitation. The program held a players' vote, and the decision was no bowl game. Also hearing from other people that it was because the fact that there's just no coaching, because the fact that there is going to be multiple turnovers in the coaching department. Well, of course, the expectation of Colin Klein coming in, he's going to make a full coaching transition, and some of the support staff, the assistant coaches, all of them are going to be turned over, and maybe there'll be a few left over, but there's not going to be anybody to coach the bowl game. So it sounded like the seniors, Jason Keander of WIBW, a friend of the podcast, put this out on social media. He said, quote, "To my knowledge, it sounds like seniors were really the only K-State players in favor of accepting the bowl invite. A tough way for some football careers to end, especially since these guys earned that opportunity to get that 6th win and play in a bowl. But again, it was the only logical option, meaning there's no other way to do it because there's no coaches to actually get them through this bowl season." And it is unfortunate because when you think of some of these players that have been here for quite some time, I mean, you have Taylor Potier, who's been there as long as Chris Kleiman, and he's retiring the same time as Chris Kleiman too, at least in the Kansas State uniform. And they're not going to get that opportunity to get that final bowl opportunity and get one more win and have a winning record in their final year. They'll have to sit at 500 at 6-6. It stings a little bit. There's no doubt about that. I was looking forward to covering another bowl game, but that also means that there is a lot more time for these players to sit around, not have practice, not be with the coaching staff, not be with the other players, and think about what they're going to do with the future of their careers. I have a feeling the fact that you are seeing these players opt out of the bowl game that even with the transition to the new coaching staff of Colin Klein and the excitement that's going to be there, I think we're going to see a ton of movement in the transfer portal. I think that number has increased. I think we're going to see a lot more movement now of players leaving and getting out and going from away from Kansas State than if they would have played the bowl game. I think that is going to be one kind of waterfall effect for them having a little bit extra time, for them having not only is this a surprise the head coach is retiring, but also surprise, yes, you earned that 6th win. You did everything you could. You grinded to get to that bowl game. And by the way, we're just not going to play it. I think there's going to be a lot of players. I think there's going to be a decent amount of players that decide that either they're disrespected or they want to go test out their playing career somewhere else because of the last couple of things that have happened over the last 72 hours or so. And the fact that they've had a down year, it wouldn't surprise me. And to be quite honest, as much as I'd love to have some of these players here, I would not blame them if they decided to do something like that because of how quickly this has transpired. In this brand new world of NIL and transfer portal and all this era, you have to find a way to get a competitive advantage and get an edge for yourself at the personal level while it still sits as a wild, wild west. And Gene Taylor kind of brought it up how they really wanted to find a way to get control. So it's one of the reasons why Chris Kleiman retired so abruptly, because he felt like there was no control in this new industry and this new way of college athletics. And with people ignoring the rules of the settlement, although Kansas State said they're going to always be following it by the book, that doesn't mean every other program is going to. So there's a lot more money out there on the table. And if you've had a better season, if you're trying to bet on yourself to get yourself to the league or get yourself just maybe you don't know that you can get to the professional level, but you know you can still be a great Division I athlete and make yourself some good money before moving on to a professional career elsewhere, why wouldn't you? And unfortunately, that's just the way that we're sitting right now in college athletics. I have a feeling it's going to get bad. It might get, I don't think it's going to get crazy bad like Oklahoma State, where everybody is leaving and you have to find a way to fill like 50 something people. West Virginia, how many transfers they had. They had so many players leaving and so much turnover this year that I think their recruiting class was in the 40s. I think they signed 40 people on National Signing Day. It's not going to get that bad, but it's going to be worse than last year. So just be ready for that for sure. We're already starting to get a taste of that, and we're going to talk about that next when we get to our transfer portal conversation. But overall, them not going to a bowl game, I'm going to be honest with you, it sucks. I was looking forward to seeing them play, even if it was something like the Rape Bowl again, or against, a Northwestern team or something along those lines, another Big Ten team or the weakest SEC team, just to kind of have that one more on your belt, or even playing like a Conference USA squad. Like I was looking forward to having one more game with Kansas State, one more game with Chris Kleiman, and kind of giving him a farewell and getting a couple more press conferences with him and getting ready for game day. But obviously there's a lot more involved when it comes to not only Chris Kleiman, not only Colin Klein, but all the other assistants, incoming and outcoming. We saw defensive backs coach Malone, put something out on social media where he was talking about his 7 great years at Kansas State, but he also put in his joking matter in the middle of the conversation, said, well, I am fired now, basically saying that the future is uncertain for him and he's going to be looking elsewhere. He's not the only one. There's going to be a lot of other assistants looking for new jobs. Maybe some stick around. Nothing is concrete right now. The fact that Colin Klein hasn't officially been reported as the head coach, although there's definitely rumors and speculation, and we've heard that it's basically a done deal. The report should be coming out Friday. It is not official yet. So if you don't think the head coach is official, then of course that's not going to be anything with the assistant coaches. But that doesn't change the fact that these players have to make decisions in less than a month if they want to leave and head in the transfer portal or stick around and stay with Kansas State. They only have one opportunity to do that this year. So now they have a lot more time to think about it, with them not being at practice every day and participating in practice, prepare for a bowl game, one that would be seen as them potentially getting to 7-6 on the season. And they would be doing it without the head coach of Chris Kleiman or without the brand new coach of Colin Klein, because he is going to be following Texas A&M through the playoffs, at least through the reports that we have heard so far. Let's dig into who's left so far in the transfer portal. That number is already up to 5, and we're going to discuss that next and what that means for some of these position groups as we head in to the new year. We'll do that next right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, this episode of Locked On Kansas State is brought to you by Aura Frames. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. If you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, well, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way you share memories, because Aura isn't just your average picture frame. You can preload the frame with photos before getting it. So when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setups, no headaches, just instant smiles. I actually really like that we have this now as a sponsor, because I have multiple Aura frames in my home. And, the fact that, and I've used them as gifts as well. Being from a military family, being on the West Coast and having family on the East Coast, it's a really cool way to be able to show my family off and be able to put them in a personalized space for some of my other extended family in their living rooms. And I use Aura Frame. It's the perfect gift. Endless uploads of pictures, 30-second videos. You can do it through the Aura app. And what's really cool, and instead of sending it on social media or something like that, it can be a more personalized, kind of specialized thing where you can put it on and send it over to those frames. And when they sit down on the couch and they look over, they see brand new pictures over there. And it's a nice little extra surprise, a gift that really keeps on giving. And for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling carver matte frames. Named number one by Wirecutter. Use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code college. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell out fast. That is true. They really do. So order yours now to get in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Again, that's promo code college. Terms and conditions do apply. The transfer portal is here. Well, at least not officially, but the expectations of players getting ready to leave in the transfer portal is definitely here. It is December 4th when we're speaking right now. The transfer portal is only open for one time and one time only this year. It opens on January 2nd, 2026. It closes on January 16th. That's the official window. But we're hearing on social media about players already putting up their messages, their graphics with their "thank you, please respect my decision," of their expectation, their decision to enter the transfer portal when it does open up. Right now, we have 6 players entering the transfer portal for Kansas State. We have a couple on the defensive side. We have a couple on the offensive side. It's actually split right down the middle, 3 on each side at the moment. And some of them are ones that hurt. There's no doubt. I think some definitely would like to have them back. And I think the number one player already that is left in the transfer portal that I think is going to be an immediate impact, probably going to see him playing in the SEC next year, is Klieman. The safety that came over in the transfer portal last season was probably the best portal addition, with the exception of maybe Luis Rodriguez, the kicker. I would say that Klieman was probably the best defensive transfer portal addition by far, and he's going to be entering the portal. I would go out on a limb and say that he is probably, I'm not going to make predictions for everyone, but nor am I even close, or do I have any of that knowledge, but where he's from just the Georgia area, but it's a lot closer to Auburn than it is Athens when it comes to University of Georgia. Would not surprise me with all the coaching changes happening in the SEC if you see him as an Auburn Tiger next year. He is a stud, and I think he's going to get a bag, and that's all power to him. With all the things changing right now, with them going to an offensive-minded head coach and Colin Klein, Klieman is going to enter the transfer portal, and he's going to be a big grab for whoever grabs him for sure. The secondary, there's another secondary player going, and it was another player that entered the portal and came over to Kansas State this past offseason, and that was Amarian Fortenberry, cornerback. Did not really get too much of a chance to show what he had in here. A couple other corners stepped up, and Fortenberry, I believe he was also dealing with some injuries at one point. He's going to enter the transfer portal and test himself elsewhere. To round out the defensive side, Truman Griffith also entered the portal, defensive end. And then on the running back side, JB Price will be the second, technically the second player on the running back room to enter the portal. Dylan Edwards, we're not adding him to the players intended to transfer since he's already been removed from the program, but technically he's in the transfer portal and redshirting. So if you want to go by technicality, it's really 7 players that have already left if you want to include Dylan Edwards, but that'll be the final time we add him to the numbers. JB Price, the other running back, is also in the portal. And then 2 tight ends are going to hit the transfer portal. Andrew Metzger and Brayden Loftin. Brayden Loftin's going to leave as a grad transfer. When he put out his report, he talked about how he's going to look to improve athletically and academically. So I think this was something that was already planned on happening, probably whether or not Chris Kleiman retired or not. That's my guess on Loftin at least. But right off the bat, of course, the secondary is going to hurt. They worked really hard on building up that secondary this past season, bring it over in the transfer portal, of course, trying to fill those shoes of guys like Jacob Parrish and Marquise Siegel. And I don't think it worked the way they wanted to, but Quay Moss definitely fit the bill. Quay Moss definitely succeeded and, dare I say, exceeded expectations compared to all the other defensive transfers this year, and him missing out and moving on. It shows that he had a great year, because he's going to transfer probably not even to a parallel level. He's probably going up to, a Big Ten or SEC school. The fact that he's from Georgia, I'm assuming he's going to head to the SEC to finish off his collegiate career. So he definitely utilized the transfer portal in the right way for him trying to make a name for himself and then ultimately trying to get himself to the NFL. And of course, Brayden Loftin, that's not going to be fun either. Now there's Kansas State's loaded with tight ends, and we haven't heard the big one of Lincoln Cure heading in the transfer portal yet. That obviously will be a dagger if that happens. But Kansas State, of course, wanting to have as much tight ends as you possibly have. You don't want to lose any offensive weapons, especially when you bring in Colin Klein. And I think that one hurts for sure. But those are the 6 right now heading into the transfer portal. It's going to get a lot worse. And we're probably going to see this number. I would say if it's only stays tripled, if it stays below 20, I think you can say it's a successful transfer portal. Like, that's how bad I think it gets. I think we get more closer to 25 players leaving in the portal for Kansas State this season. And maybe that's a good thing. Who knows, right? You have some players leaving in graduation. You also have a recruiting class at the moment sitting at 23 players. I'm sure they're trying to add a couple more as well to that recruiting class. You want to have some sort of turnover, especially when you don't have the season that you anticipated to have. When you thought you were going to be a 10-2 or a 9-3 team, you wind up going 6-6. There is some type of turnover that you actually want to have. Some of these players in there, though, like a Quay Moss and Brayden Loftin, I think the fact that you have those type of utilization, the way that they were utilized, you don't want them leaving in the portal, but good luck to them. I really wish good luck to all 6 of these players. And again, it will not be the last time we talk about players leaving in the portal. I mean, who knows? By the time you're listening to this, there might be another one heading out in the portal, because there's been multiple been talked about today. I think we're going to probably get a Friday news dump. We're probably going to get some on the weekend. So when we meet again on Monday and talk about that episode, we'll probably have to catch up and do some portal chatter for sure. There's been some really big names that have left other schools in positions of absolute need for Kansas State that have hit the portal that I believe would be like absolute great grabs for this program. We're going to talk about those in the next week or two while we wait for the portal to open, because I think there are some great names that I think a guy like Colin Klein and what he brings over, depending on what his support staff looks like, what his recruiting staff looks like, would have a good chance at going after them and picking them up. So if they want to make a great, quick turnover and get themselves back to being competitive in Big 12 in year one of Colin Klein, I think going after some of these players will be very, very important. We're going to discuss that in the near future. All right, let's talk about the round out this show. The all Big 12 teams have been announced, and we're going to discuss that next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. But first, NFL Sundays move fast in one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what making live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum, every swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best when games start to shift. The receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips on a turnover. You know how this happens. It happens all the time. FanDuel lets you jump in to those moments and get into the game. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. You can bet that next touchdown score. Those are fun. Drive results, totals, and more to keep it locked in on every snap, every drive, every possibility. I love the same game parlays, the SGPs. I love that you can utilize live into those SGPs as well. FanDuel makes it so much different watching the game and so much unique, and I absolutely enjoy using it. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Rounding out this show at Locked On Kansas State, bringing you Wildcat coverage like no one else, and I really appreciate everyone stopping by. Had a great turnout with yesterday's news and all that stuff. We dropped multiple episodes. We were over on Locked On Big 12. We were over on Locked On College Football. We were talking a lot about the Chris Kleiman. Everybody wanted to discuss the Chris Kleiman news, and we definitely had it everywhere. Really appreciate everyone tuning in. Love the comments. Love the reactions. Everything. So really appreciate that. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We are very close to 1,400 subscribers. We are absolutely cooking. So if you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, just hit that subscribe button. It really means a ton. The Kansas State Wildcats added some names to their all Big 12 squad. One to the first team, a couple to the second team, a couple to the third team, and some honorable mentions. 5 Kansas State football players have received all conference honors from the Big 12. First and foremost, one player named to the all Big 12 first team, and that's Sam Hecht. He was also named an honorable mention for the all Big 12 offensive lineman of the year, but getting first team for the offensive line absolutely deserves. Chris Kleiman has spoke about Sam Hecht so many times in the past, saying he's one of the most underrated offensive linemen, not just in the Big 12, but in the country. So the fact that he's getting this recognition this final season before he gets ready to most likely and hopefully enter the NFL draft, it is really awesome to see. I think Sam Hecht has the ability to be what Cooper Beebe was at the NFL level, and I'd really like to see that happen. And getting him as the first team all Big 12 selection to end his collegiate career at Kansas State is absolutely electric. So congratulations to Sam. 2 were added to the second team. That's another offensive lineman. That's John Pastore and Austin Romaine. Austin Romaine, I think, would have made a step higher if he wasn't injured all the way. The fact that he was injured and dealt with so many injuries this year and still made second team tells you a lot. And according to Chris Kleiman, of course, things have changed with his retirement decision. He was very confident that Austin Romaine was going to return to Kansas State next year. We'll hope that his name does not pop up when it comes to those please respect my decision conversations, because having Austin Romaine lead your defense in a brand new head coaching scheme of Colin Klein would be huge for year one of Colin Klein's era at Kansas State. John Pastore, another great season. And what's crazy about him is he wasn't slated to be the starting left tackle of the season. Remember, George Fitzpatrick was scheduled to be the offensive tackle, the left tackle going into Big 12 media days. Obviously, some medical issues hit up, and John Pastore popped in and became one of the best offensive linemen on the entire roster, with the exception of maybe Sam Hecht, of course, being first team. And that's what it showed up here for the all Big 12 second team selection. And here's where it gets, dare I say, awesome. Jayce Brown makes the third team. Jayce Brown also dealing with injuries towards the end of the season. He was very on his way to becoming a 1,000-yard receiver. Would have been the first time in Kansas State in, I think, over a decade if that would have happened. And the fact that he made third team because of those injuries is still really good. And that also speaks more to some of the really good receivers inside the Big 12, Jordan Tyson to name some. There's some really good wide receivers in the Big 12. If he would have been healthy, I think he also moves up a spot as well. And then Joe Jackson makes the all Big 12 third team. Wasn't even the starting running back until the end of the season after Dylan Edwards left the program. Of course, dealt with his injuries, but Joe Jackson stepped up. What he did towards the end of the season was absolutely electric, breaking the Kansas State rushing record for a game, beating out Darren Sproles' record. And Joe Jackson makes third team. I think you could make the argument for 3 of these 5 players, for Austin Romaine and for Jayce Brown, to move up a level. Austin Romaine being a first team selection, Jayce Brown being a second team selection, if they were not injured. That shows you really good things. I think that's great things. And both those players have eligibility to return next season. And I think you can make the case for Joe Jackson that if he would have been utilized the same way that he was utilized in those last couple of games of the season, he could have easily moved up another selection to second team and maybe even battled for the first team. Now, the running back that made the first team, LJ Martin for BYU, was not only named to the first team for all Big 12, but he was named the all Big 12 offensive player of the year. But think about it. Look at LJ Martin's numbers. Look at how Joe Jackson was in the past couple weeks. If they would have utilized him in this offense all 12 games, not only are you probably battling for all Big 12 first team, but you're probably battling an LJ Martin for the top of the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. That just shows the potential that the players that still have eligibility left in John Pastore, Austin Romaine, Joe Jackson, Jayce Brown, 4 of these 5 players can return to Kansas State next season. That should get you very, very excited. There was still a good amount of honorable mentions as well. 8 honorable mentions for the All Big 12 for Kansas State football. Jared Tibbs, a wide receiver. Garrett Oakley at tight end. Des Purnell at linebacker. I think that one I think is a snub. I think Des Purnell at least deserved to be on the 3rd team. Damian Ilalio was on there. Chidi Obiizor, Cody Stufflebean, VJ Payne, and Zayshawn Rich. All 8 of them earned honorable mention. Out of those 8, I think Des Purnell should have deserved at least 3rd team. I think he was your best defender all season long. With thinking that Austin Romaine would have actually done that, I think Des Purnell stepped up, especially towards the end of the season. And what he's shown, he had some issues at the beginning of the year at missed tackles, but he really stepped up. His turnovers towards the end of the year, just tackles for losses, his leading the team in tackles towards the end of the year. I think Des Purnell deserved to be at least all Big 12 3rd team. But either way, honorable mention, and having a lot of names here, 13 names, either named to 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or honorable mention. That's great for a 6-6 squad. I think you take that. And a lot of them are players that can return to Kansas State if they choose to do so. So exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff. Honestly, Quay Moss, the fact that he wasn't on honorable mention is kind of confusing to me too, because I thought Quay Moss had a great season. And the fact he's not there, of course, he's entering the transfer portal, but that's a kind of a shock to me as well. Let me know what your thoughts are about the fact that Kansas State is not going to play in a bowl game. Are you upset? Do you understand? Are you just more looking for the future now, waiting for the Colin Klein press conference, maybe him showing up at the Seton Hall basketball game on Saturday? Let me know your thoughts in the comment description below. If you're listening on audio, you can always hit me up on Twitter X at Christian S. Rauh or at Locked On K-State. We got 2 Twitter accounts. And I'm also, if you're a TikTok fan, also drop exclusive content over on TikTok as well on the daily. You can find that at Locked On Kansas State. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you back here next time right here on Locked On Kansas State.